Welcome to True Paranormal, the podcast, with your host, Leo Rizzuti. Every week we will explore such topics as ghosts, demons, poltergeist, haunted history, time shifts, cryptozoology, and other aspects of the paranormal through listener-submitted accounts, documentary studies, and interviews with the investigators that dedicate their lives to searching for proof of the unknown. So get a fresh cup of coffee, dim the lights, relax, and get ready for a short visit to the realm of the true paranormal. Hi guys, Leo Rizzuti here. Welcome to another episode of True Paranormal, the podcast. I'd like to start off by saying I'm sorry to you guys that we haven't had an episode in the last couple of weeks. I have been out on the road quite a bit and then came back with some kind of a mystery bug. Not sure exactly what it was. I don't really get sick very often, but man, it knocked me on my butt for a period of about a week and a half. I'm just now recovering, so if I sound a little throaty or a little coughy, I'm sorry guys. That is just a little bit of the bug I have left over in me. But doing much better now, and I'm kind of glad for that because we have a great guest on the show this week. I ran into this guy on Twitter, actually, where I found a link to his page called The Mystery Press. And this guy has a lot of great information there, a lot of stories, things that I haven't really given a whole lot of thought until I started reading about it. And he not only does stories on kind of the cryptids and the unknown mysteries that are out there, but he does a lot of his own investigations too. He lives in a small town up in the Great White North, and there seems to be a lot of things happening in his area, which he has access to, which we're glad for, but it definitely makes his life kind of interesting, to say the least. But he was gracious enough to sit down with us this afternoon and chat, and hope you guys are ready for what is a very enjoyable conversation with my guest, MP of the Mystery Press. Hey guys, Leo Rizzuti here. Welcome to another episode of True Paranormal, the podcast. I would like to introduce you guys to my guest this week. We're going to call him MP. And MP is the, I guess you're the owner and the main writer. Is that correct, for Mystery Press?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. And if you guys have never visited his blog, he has got some of the most interesting articles that he's done all the research on, he's done the investigations on, things like that, of anybody I've ever seen. He has explored all kinds of avenues of the unknown, of just weird events. It's no other way to really describe it, because you kind of run the whole gamut of things that people would want to explore. But a lot of what you do is cryptids and things like that. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Okay. So, at any rate, I'm glad that we were able to connect. We had some problems with our phone services not wanting to match up, but we finally got a good connection here, or semi-good, and we're glad to have you on the show. Thank you for joining with us.
Well, thank you for having me on your show.
Do I sound really mechanical or grainy on your end?
No, you sound natural.
Okay, because it sounds really Darth Vader-y on my end. So,
I'm telling you, man, they don't want us talking.
You know, it's weird. Let's explore that a little bit. Because you say they don't want us to start talking, which is not, I don't think that's a crazy thing to say, because I know I've got an investigation group that does haunting investigations that I work with, and we were supposed to go investigate a tavern tap house. And the day that I went to go to meet with these folks, we'd gotten halfway there, we stopped to get gas, and I had left my credit card at home. So we had to drive all the way back home to get my card so that we could get gas to drive all the way back out there. And you're talking about, a 2-hour trip. So then whenever we get there, the hotel that I had booked did not have my reservation, and my credit card would not work there. So I called the guy that I was going to do the investigation with, and at this point, this was at like 2:00 in the morning. I was supposed to meet him at 3 in the morning. And I said, all kinds of things are going wrong. And he told me he was actually about to call me because the other folks on his team, he personally had his car breakdown that day. One other person on the team had been in a car accident. Another person had gotten sick that morning and was actually in the hospital. And the lady that ran the tavern that was supposed to let us in had a death in the family that morning and had to reschedule.
Huh.
And it was like, there's no way that stuff just happens by coincidence. So sometimes things just don't want you to get together. So,
well, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I've had that stuff happen to me too, so.
It's just bizarre that, sometimes when you try to get together with folks, it just doesn't seem to work. And this was obviously one of the times. But the good news is we got together, so yay.
That's the main thing.
And why don't you go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, give us a background about where you come from, and really what got you into doing this kind of writing and these kind of articles.
Well, what can I say? Actually, I'm an ordinary guy. I have an ordinary job, an ordinary life. The one thing I've always found was that I've always found myself in predicaments. Now, I'm not saying just like weird predicaments or anything like that, but paranormal predicaments where I'd go for a walk, in the woods or whatever with my dog or my wife or friends or whatever. And all of a sudden there'd be dead silence. And I always feel like something's watching me. I've always felt like I always have an acute connection with the unknown. I've always found myself it's always this weird connection I have. I always know when something bad's about to happen. And I always remove myself from that situation, then boom, something bad will happen. Like what can I say? Like a year ago, I was supposed to go on this road trip with a few friends, right? And I had this really weird feeling that I was not meant to go on this road trip. Something bad was going to happen. So I told them, I was like, I'm not doing this. I don't have a good feeling about this. And then all of a sudden, boom, car accident, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and I've always seen things too. Like I've always seen shadow people and stuff like that in the corner of my eye. At a very young age, I've always had a strong connection with ghosts and whatnot. Like I always feel like I'm able to, like I can feel their presence and whatnot. I'm not trying to sound, what's that word? Like I'm not clairvoyant or anything like that. I'm not clairvoyant, I'm not at all. But I've always seen things, which I know kind of sounds a little out there, but like it's not. Like some people are tapped into the river of info.
Right, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. I have always kind of had the ability to sense things, but I would never. I joined a group today on Facebook, and the first thing they ask on the little entry questions is, "Are you gifted?" And I don't know if I'm gifted. I don't call myself gifted. I think that I might have some special talents, but I'm thinking, well, okay, I can roll my tongue, I can whistle. Does that make you gifted? So you say you've been experiencing these since a young age. Do you remember the first time you had an experience, say, with a shadow person?
Yes, actually, I was 6 years old. I was living in Ontario in this duplex with my parents. My father was working in town, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I had a sister. She was about a year and a bit. And so at a young age, you're told, when you're thirsty or whatnot, you go downstairs and get a glass of water, whatever, right? So I'd go downstairs, and it was like a weird duplex, right? Because like you had the main floor, which was, the kitchen, the living room. Then you had to go up like this flight of stairs. It was about 40 or 50 steps. And then you had the upstairs. And so going down there as a kid, it's like whatever. It's dark. You're tired. And then you go get yourself a glass of water and you drink it and you go up. But when I got a glass of water, I turned around and while I was drinking it, I saw something. right by the front door, which is right by the main staircase going up to the bedrooms, right? So as I'm drinking this, I drop my glass of water and the glass shatters. And I'm not going to deny this, but, as a little kid, I pissed my pants.
Right.
You don't expect to be seeing a 6 foot tall person who you can't make out their features when the lights are on. And, if that makes any sense.
Wow. So
yeah, exactly. Right. And then when I turned around, right, for whatever reason, I had this feeling that I should turn around, and I turn around, and then all of a sudden that, it's like something has control over me. So then all of a sudden I turn around, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, I'm back to normal. Right. And then I turn around and nothing's there. If
wow.
That
That's a bizarre story. Wow. Yeah. That would kind of, I can imagine at 6 years old, that would kind of set you on a different track for life, for sure.
Well, I've always been able to see this stuff, right? And like, no matter what, and I can't escape it. Like, I don't want to see this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't want this, but it happens. And, I put it out there for free.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what I tell people. I put it out there for free because I don't want fame or notoriety.
Right.
I just want to put this out there because, I shouldn't be making money off the stuff that I see. I just want to inform and educate. You get a lot of these people who, I don't want to name any names, but they make a living off of it.
Right. Right.
But I'm not like that. I want to wake up and go to my 9-to-5 job. I want to be able to retire one day with a nice pension, Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you say you see these, are you seeing, because I kind of have a theory about this, are you seeing these things out of the corner of your eye? Or are you seeing them straight on, or is it a mix of things?
It's a mix.
Okay. Yeah, because I've got a theory that you see these out of the corner of your eye because your eyes don't filter as well on the corner of your eye. So your mind isn't able to filter, well, that isn't real. So things that are there, but that you normally wouldn't accept as being legitimately there, you're able to actually see out of the corner of your eye. But you're seeing things straight on. You're seeing things full blown. This thing's right in front of me.
Well, exactly. Yes, and at such a young age that I don't want to say it traumatized me, but it pushed me into the right direction, as it were, to investigate and to dedicate a good chunk of my life to investigating these sorts of things.
Okay, so how did you go about that? How did you get started in that? Did you just do a lot of reading? Have you always written on these subjects, or how did you really get into doing what you do now?
Well, it was a mix of things, right? Before, I would just see these things and then I would just try to ignore them. And then as I got older, I was like, you know what? No, I can't really talk about these things to my parents or to friends or whatever, because they're going to think I'm batshit crazy. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this show.
You can swear all you want.
Okay, perfect. I didn't want to sound
we try not to drop any F-bombs, but other than that.
That's fine. That's fine. I didn't want to think people would think I was crazy and be ostracized. So I kept it a lot to myself. And then it came to the point where I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to start reporting on these things, with the whole, with the paranormal and the occult stuff. And it just came, and I just started it like that.
Now your blog that you have, it's actually more, I consider it more like a website than a blog, because to me a blog is just, somebody keeping like a diary. You're actually doing research. You're actually writing articles, things like that. How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that I've been posting it on the website and whatnot for how long? A couple months now. But I've been reporting a lot of this stuff for a while. I got binders and binders of information.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like a heck of a project to put all that stuff online and I appreciate your attitude of, I'm here to educate people. I feel the same way myself with the podcast. Sure, I want to entertain people, but more than entertaining people, I want to help people out as much as I can, and I want to educate folks in areas where they're not necessarily getting an education on it. The things you like to talk about it's a legitimate, they don't get educated on it because people a lot of times don't want folks to be educated on it. The stuff I deal with mostly with hauntings and things like that, people kind of just poo-poo and shove to the side, and which is disheartening to me. But, so I like to teach people the reality of it, and I like to tell people that, you're not necessarily crazy if you're experiencing this. There's other people out there that are experiencing the same things.
Oh, exactly. And I couldn't agree more. And there's a lot of people that we know when they find out and they're, and they read your stuff or they watch videos on it, they think you're crazy automatically because they're taught at such a young age that there's no such things as monsters.
Right.
The whole path of evolution is from point A to point B to point C. There's no branching off, and you're told that at a very young age though, but then you find out there's certain things in histories. In the history of Greece with the minotaurs and centaurs and whatnot like that, and the Egyptians with the Anubises, and I know I screwed that bit up, but why else would people be talking about this stuff if it wasn't real? You wouldn't see this in like history books or whatnot, but they have it all laid out there in their history almost,
Right. And the assumption is that they were just making this stuff up as like bedtime stories or something like that, or cautionary tales. And my mindset's always been, well, there's got to be a kernel of truth to something somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anywhere where this might be getting kind of on the edge of what you would feel comfortable answering or not, but is there anything where you would say, okay, this is where I draw the line. This is definitely too wacky even for me to believe there's any legitimacy to it? Or are you one of those folks that where I kind of am, where I just like, well, if people tell me they've seen this or people tell me they've experienced it, who am I to tell them that they're lying?
I'm on that path. I cannot tell you if you're telling me the truth or if you're just bull-faced lying to me. If you see something, I'm going to take your word for it because in all honesty, what point of lying do you have on that subject, right?
Right.
If you were to tell me, hey, MP, there's a rise of mutilated cats in my neighborhood. I'm going to be like, okay, well, show me the photos and show me the stuff and whatnot. And then I get that stuff sent to me and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to believe you, but I'm not going to post those photos on my website.
Right. Right. Exactly.
That's how I am.
Okay. Awesome. So one of the things that I was really excited to talk to you on this broadcast for a couple of reasons. First off, we've chatted back and forth quite a bit, and I love doing that. But I found with you somebody that I could kind of connect with as far as I think you have the same kind of mindset that I have when it comes to maybe the nature of reality and the nature of the world around us. Well, what would you say do you even have a personal theory about what I would call the nature of reality and how that it ties into what people consider paranormal experiences?
I honestly think, and this is just my theory on it, you can agree with it or disagree with it. I think that we are pretty much living in a world where we have a lot of people with their blinders on. And I'm not saying that it's blinders due to mysticism or whatnot. I think it's just plain ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
You could walk down the street and you could see somebody walking towards you and something isn't right. Something's not right with them. Maybe it's maybe it's their aura. Maybe it's just this feeling you have over them and you automatically ignore it because, you don't want to get involved. It's like, and I'm going to use this example. You have to excuse me. I'm getting over a throat infection.
Oh, no, that's fine. I haven't posted a broadcast in a couple of weeks just because I've also been not on my deathbed sick, but I've been pretty sick the last couple of weeks. And so I'm in the same boat. I'm getting over some pretty nasty stuff myself.
Oh, perfect. I'm not alone then.
Exactly.
I want to use this example. There was this, I want to use two examples. There was this woman in New York. She got attacked and brutally murdered. And 20 something or 30 something people heard it and nobody did anything about it. We like the masses like to not get involved because, the second you're involved, then your name's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's almost like nobody cares. You know, if you see something, like something doesn't feel right, 9 times out of 10, no one's going to report it. My second example is that of Jeffrey Dahmer. Nobody saw him ever go into his apartment with groceries or go to the grocery store or whatever, but they always smelled him cooking something, and that never raised a red flag with anybody. Like, come on. But nobody wants to do anything about it, because then all of a sudden you got to talk to the cops, you got to deal with this, you got to deal with that. And there's a lot of things out there that we don't understand and will never understand, because a lot of the people that see it just don't want to get involved with it. They don't want people thinking they're crazy. They don't want people to think they're just making it up for attention or for money. And that's just the way it is. Like, a lot of people just turn a blind eye to it, and I think that's really sad.
So how much of that do you think is, because what you're describing is kind of a self-imposed blinder where I'm going to ignore it intentionally because I just don't want to get involved. I don't want to, I'm in the middle of my own business. I'm not going to waste half my day dealing with this thing. How much of that do you think is self-imposed, and how much of that do you think is the culture we grew up in, and or our actual biology where we're pre-wired to filter out this stuff?
I think we're pre-wired. I think it's a mixture. I think it's pre-wired, and I think it's just the generation, right? Because you're taught at such a young age not to trust authoritarian figures, depending on where you grew up.
Right. I grew up in the country in North Carolina, and we're taught the police are your buddies and they're your friends, and you should trust them implicitly because every police officer. You go to church with them, and you go to school with their kids, or you grew up with them, so you of course you trust them. But it's not quite the same thing in a big city.
Exactly, or like a small town, right? You're kind of, you don't want to report you saw a Bigfoot to the police because all of a sudden, blammo, you're on that crazy don't respond list.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
There's a lot of that, right? It's the reason why I do what I do is because, I have people that tell me stuff and, whatnot. But I think it's a mixture of both, if that makes any sense.
Now, I have a thought that I've actually kind of been pondering for a while as far as the nature of reality, things like that. And a lot of it comes from a book I've read several years ago called The Daemon, which a daemon is not a demon, but it's kind of spelled like demon, but it's almost like a muse. It's a spirit that gives you advice, that comes from Greek legends. And the guy that wrote this book was talking about the nature of reality and how people experience things that they can't explain, deja vu, things like that. And one of the things he was talking about was the fact that the people that have weird experiences where they see things that other people can't explain or that other people don't see are usually more subject to seizures. They're more subject to migraines, things like that, other brain ailments. But then also they have certain psychoses. Like a lot of people they say they're that they end up being schizophrenic, and they don't know if it's that they're seeing these things because they're schizophrenic, or if you become schizophrenic because you see these things. But his theory is that the brain is, of course, a filter. We actually, what you see in front of you and what you hear, things like that, is only 1% to 2% of the actual input coming into your brain. And you can't handle all the input coming in, so you're pre-wired to filter the stuff out. And certain people aren't pre-wired correctly. They take in all this information, so they see other realities. They see, parallel universes. They see things that are normally hidden from sight with other people. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
Yes, I have, actually. I have seen people who said they've seen things. I've seen people who've witnessed things. I've not seen, I've met them. They've witnessed things. They witnessed things that you would not really make up. And in my opinion, I don't think a lot of people would want to make up stuff that they saw just because they don't want people to think they're crazy, right?
Right,
And,
especially in the age we live in with the internet, it's so easy to just become ridiculed for
well, yeah,
what you're telling the truth. You're telling what you saw.
exactly. And in this day and age, with everybody using medications, pharmaceuticals, uh, to cure everything,
Hmm.
and a lot of these people that are, jacked up on, antipsychotics, antidepressants, anti-anxiety pills, whatever. There's a good chunk of people that need them, but there's a small percentage that don't need them, and they're only taking them because people think they're crazy because they've seen something.
Right,
Uh, I've
right.
I've I've seen that happen before. Where somebody says, they say, I've seen, I've seen Bigfoot and whatnot and all this stuff, and then everybody ridicules them. And it's like, well, who are you to, ridicule them?
Right. That frustrates me to no end when I'll talk to somebody about an experience that they've had, and they'll tell me, you're the only person I can tell about this because everybody else makes fun of me. And I'm thinking, who in the heck are they to basically call you a liar? To say,
Exactly.
you didn't experience what you said. Now it's different if you're trying to sell a TV program, or you're trying to sell, a book or something like that, where you're trying to say, this happened to me and you need to believe that this happened to me, and this is all but they won't talk to you about it freely. Then some red flags might pop up. But if you're just having a conversation with somebody that's just a buddy of yours, or you're just sitting down over a cup of coffee and they're talking to you about it, what do they have to gain by lying about it? I'll never understand that. And that goes back to, religious experiences people have, or, where they say that they experience miracles, or things that they've seen, or coincidences where they say, yeah, I was thinking, I was wearing a Wil Wheaton shirt the other day and I ran into Wil Wheaton on the street. Well, why would they lie about that? Why would they tell me that if it didn't actually happen?
Well, exactly. Who'd ever want to admit they met Wil Wheaton?
I mean, come on.
Like, Jean-Luc Picard, yeah, totally, but not Wil
Exactly.
Wheaton.
No. I mean, if you meet Wil Wheaton on the street, and your whole life has been to meet some members of the Star Trek cast, and you meet Wil Wheaton, that's got to be like the most disappointing day of your life. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, Will, hi, you're great, good, go away now.
Yeah. I would have the same reaction if I ever met if I ever met Zach Bagans.
Hmm.
Like, I agree totally with what you say, like what you said about like people who put it out there who will only talk about it for money. And that's another reason why I find like the whole ghost searching community. And I'm not going to say hunt. I'm not going to say ghost hunting, because honestly, you're not out there to hunt. You're out there to try to make contact.
Right,
You
and most of the good guys are out there just trying to contact and gain evidence.
Yeah, you don't go out hunting, hunting Bigfoot. You're trying to communicate. You're trying to prove its existence.
Hmm.
It's I always find that funny when people say that, especially like not you. I'm not saying you.
Well,
you get people like Zach. No, I can't say that. But you get like the whole ghost hunting thing, right? Like the whole I don't want to badmouth anything, because that's not my style. But
Yeah,
I've seen that movie.
don't badmouth Zach. My daughter has a huge crush on him.
Oh,
So.
okay, never mind. But what I find, I'm only gonna I'm gonna say this though: if you're doing something and you're trying to like prove the existence of other beings, interdimensional creatures, ghosts, whatnot, there's always that fine line between shuckster and truth teller.
Mhm.
And I always find that fine line is always crossed when the promise of financial gain is on the table.
Right.
Because those that are determined, that are dedicated, that are really out there looking for truth, are the ones who don't ask for money, who don't want money, and often the ones that are ridiculed. But the ones who want, television shows and movie deals, those are the ones that are believable. Those are the ones where people believe them. But, the ones who do it for free, who are just doing it just to prove something, prove scientifically, those are the ones that are always ridiculed. And I always find that to be quite funny.
Well, I think that our culture kind of hardwires us these days to automatically believe celebrities beyond anybody else. It doesn't matter what their area of expertise is. It doesn't matter what else they might say that doesn't make any sense. If they're on TV or they're famous, you're going to take them as being more credible than anybody else for whatever reason. And, I like Tina Fey, but if Tina Fey gave me advice on how to fix my car, I don't know that I would necessarily believe her. 'Cause now if she told me how to be a comedic actress, sure, why not? She knows what she's talking about with that.
Exactly.
now that we've alienated about 80% of the paranormal community. No,
but what, though? The 20% though are the ones who are trying to seek truth.
Right.
And I take that as an event.
Exactly. And there are a lot of folks that, the great thing about the paranormal community is that you can really use the grocery store method. You can really go in and, like I like Chip Coffey. I like him personally. Mm-hmm. I don't like a lot of his politics. I don't agree with him in a lot of areas of life, but he tries to do a lot of good things for people, and I appreciate that about him. And so I'm never going to badmouth Chip Coffey. Whenever I communicate with Chip Coffey, we're just not going to talk politics, man.
Exactly.
And that's the great thing about the paranormal community is because you've got people who have had experiences where they've already been ridiculed, where they've already been kind of marginalized by society. A lot of times people are a little more accepting of, well, hey, I like you for 75, 80% of what you are, and I'm just going to ignore the 20 to 25% that I don't care about.
Yeah, and it's a good thing that you said that. Well, you brought it up because I've seen that in a lot of the Facebook communities. There's a lot of ridicule and there's a lot of nonsense there because everybody wants to turn it into like some kind of political discussion. Mm-hmm. Or they want to talk about it and kind of compare it to what's going on in the world today. Mm-hmm. And it's just so absurd, It's so absurd how much infighting there is.
Right, where there doesn't need to be. There really doesn't need.
Because you got the guys who are investigating ghosts, and then you got the crypto guys, mm-hmm. and they always seem to argue with each other. And then you got the ones that believe in interdimensional beings, and then somebody mm-hmm. brings up Donald Trump. And it's like, wait, what?
Wait, where did that come from?
Exactly. I've seen that happen a lot of times, and that's why a lot of the times I leave those groups. Because I'm like, it's cool to talk about whatever, but once you bring politics in it, it becomes a laughing stock. And right. I don't care who you see as, who you like as a politician. It's none of my business.
Right. Exactly. And that's the way, because I'm very involved in politics. I love politics. Politics are actually one of the things that got me into doing broadcasts in the beginning. But that being said, this topic, paranormal, allows me to get away from that. And when I get away from it, I want to be away from it. Don't muddy my waters with your politics. Just talk about ghosts, man, or talk about aliens or Bigfoot or whatever you want to talk about. Don't talk about politics, dude.
Oh, exactly. And I agree with you entirely on that.
So here's a thought for you. Because you've seen a lot of things. Honestly, you've had more experiences than I've had for sure. You've had more experiences than just about anybody I can think of off the top of my head with seeing weird stuff. So do you believe that we live, because this will kind of go into where these things possibly come from, do you think that we live concurrently alongside other dimensions and these things are leaking out of them and we're peering into the other realm? Or do you think that we only sporadically interconnect with that? Or do you think these are all things that are physically in this dimension and readily available to us? So, from a scientific point of view, let's take Bigfoot. Bigfoot, to me, is an actual creature out there that we could get DNA samples from. Somebody could bag a Bigfoot. They could kill one. I wouldn't recommend it because you'd be a pariah in the community. But that's something that's potentially out there as a physical thing? Or do you think that we live alongside? Do you think that we live alongside other dimensions and these things just kind of pop out of them? Where do these things come from? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I honestly believe we live amongst a very thin line of other dimensions, other evolutionary points that break off. And now here's my theory, and I talk about this in my book, which is free, so you can call me a hypocrite. I think
good call.
Yeah, see, thank you. That space and time is on a record. All right. Now, the more and more that record is played, there's more of a likely, occurrence that it would skip, right? And the needle will jump or whatnot. I think, honestly, we're on a record. And every little thing we see, may it be Bigfoot, may it be ghosts, whatnot, right? I think it's on an interdimensional plane. There's little pockets, like a little doorway will open up. And then you'll see on the other side of that doorway, maybe a Bigfoot, maybe ghosts, maybe whatever, right? And then as soon as the needle touches the record again, boom, it closes. Little hiccups in the space-time continuum, if that makes any sense.
No, that does, and that's an incredible thought. I've never actually had it so coherently put as you just did. What I was kind of describing was, is this something we interact with all the time, or are we bumping into it? And what you just described was us bumping into it, which would really explain why you have experiences where somebody said, I saw this at this location, and you go out to that location and there's no, I don't want to say there's no evidence to be found, but it can't be reproduced. Well, it's because we're not intersecting with that plane right at the moment. You can't reproduce something that just isn't there.
Well, you hear a lot of stories of people, who go out for walks and they're never seen again, or people, there's that, I forget the story, but anyways, this guy was walking around, and he walked towards Skinwalker Ranch, and this Native American was like, "Oh, don't go over there. You're not going to come back." And the guy was like, whatever. And he walks 30, 40 feet and he just vanishes.
Right. No, I know exactly the story you're talking about. Yep.
And then his family goes out there and they're like, "Well, we walked out to where he is and it's closed. We can walk 20 miles and nothing's going to happen." So I think that we are on this little loop. It's the same thing with ghosts, right? You see a ghost in the house and he walks up a flight of stairs and there's a wall on the left side and he goes left. Well, maybe 100 years ago there was a door there. Renovations closed that door off. That's the way I look at it.
Awesome. With that being said, do you think it's something that in the future we'll be able to figure out a way to open up those doors a little bit more so that we can experience them more or replicate them more? Or do you think that's something that's just beyond us?
I think at a point in our lives, and this will happen outside of our existence, but I think it's a possibility. I think we shouldn't do it though, because some things are best left unseen, and I don't think a vast majority of the people can handle it. Can you imagine if all of a sudden, it opens up and whatnot, and you could see 80,000 years, in the past or whatever, or what if all of a sudden you see, you understand that, Bigfoot's real, but the Bible tells you that's not real.
Right.
I don't think a lot of people will be able to handle that.
Right. Huh. Okay. See, I think people can handle it. I think people are flexible enough that, when we discovered that the Earth went around the sun and not the other way around, that there was a certain amount of revolt when it came to it, but people eventually just folded that knowledge into their lives. They just said, okay, well, this doesn't affect my faith, because my faith is my faith, but this is additional knowledge on top of it. So, I don't know, but that's one of those things that you would never know until it actually happened. Is the problem.
Exactly. And it's funny that you use that example because remember a couple of years ago they were trying to get all those popular rappers to say the Earth is flat.
Oh yeah.
And Shaq even started doing it too, almost as if they're being paid off.
Yep. I've got some friends who are, I don't want to say they're believers in flat Earth, but they have definitely pointed out some things to me and tried to get me to agree with them. And I just nod my head and say, okay, yeah, sure. That's great information. Thank you. And then I just go on with my day.
It's funny that you said that because I was working up north, doing my thing, and somebody was trying to turn me on to that stuff. And, I'm just like, okay. And I just walk away halfway through a sentence. I can't be bothered with that.
Yes, you know what? At some point you get to that level where you're just like, okay, I've had enough of this. I'm just gonna leave now.
Well, it's funny because my boss saw everything, right? He was like, whoa, MP, that was pretty rude of you. And I was like, well, you know what? This is what he was trying to tell me. And then he looked at me, and they looked at the other guy, and he just shook his head. He's like, you had every right to do that.
Exactly.
Because I guess like his daughter's like an astronomer or something, or she's going to school for astronomy. It's just,
oh my God,
got to deal with a lot of people who aren't on the same wavelength.
No. And again, you're not being insulting by it, but you also kind of have to protect yourself to a certain extent. You have to protect what comes into you. Mm-hmm. So, do you delineate what is and is not paranormal then in your mind? I mean, I know in my mind, when I think paranormal, I tend to think that, for example, ghosts, hauntings, psychic events, things like that are paranormal, but Bigfoot's not necessarily paranormal because that's something that's more normal to me because I can physically, if I had a Bigfoot in front of me, I could touch Bigfoot. So to me, that's more normal. And aliens and UFOs kind of fall into that realm, or do you just consider it all paranormal?
Well, see, here's the funny thing, and you're going to call me crazy. I don't think any of it's paranormal. I think honestly, like, who's to say you can't touch a ghost?
Well, I know a lot of people who have been touched by ghosts. So.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole theory of succubuses and whatnot, that's all based on that stuff too. Honestly, I think paranormal is just an old-fashioned term. It's a term that just lumps everything together.
Do you think that there's a better term?
I like to call it reality.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. Yeah, because we're not the only beings here. There is evidence of ghosts. There's evidence of sea creatures that were once believed to be extinct, but they're popping up now. Giant squids were deemed, fantasy.
Oh, of course,
10 years ago. And now look at it. They keep saying there's megalodon sightings, or that's what they are, right? Those giant sharks, megalodons?
Yeah, I would, as much as I am not a big fan of swimming in the ocean because, you become bait at that point, I would love if megalodon was still around just so I could just say, yes, that's another one that people said was gone and it's not.
Well, I can honestly imagine that they still exist because there was that one fish that was believed to be extinct, and they found it in the 50s
in
South Africa. Yeah.
Yeah, the coelacanths.
And they're saying honestly, I think it's all reality. It's obvious that aliens exist. It's obvious that ghosts exist. Bigfoot exists. Like, it's all in our reality. The only reason why it's called paranormal is just to kind of throw, I don't want to use this term because, I'm not that cool, but throw shade on the whole existence of everything. I'm not that cool.
You just gained 3 points of street cred.
Oh, sweet.
That puts you near the top in Canada, actually. I think 3 points.
Wow. Nice. Now my whole life has a purpose.
So your mindset is then that this is all just, it's nothing weird about any of this stuff other than the fact that everybody's not able to realize it. Then maybe.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the way I look at it. Like, I don't try to denounce anything, because we aren't alone in this world. We have not explored every inch of this planet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who's to say that? Who's to say what we don't know is out there?
No, I mean, we know more about the surface of the moon and the surface of Mars than we do about the bottom of the ocean,
Exactly.
for example. And
You
that's
know, and
70% of the globe. Or
yeah,
flat Earth, whichever one you want to decide you believe. Flat Earth, whatever.
yeah, exactly. You know, and people go missing every day in national parks. Uh, you know, anywhere. People disappear and nobody seems to care. You know,
No,
like where do these people go? You know, if that makes any
right.
sense. Am I trailing off?
No. I think that's right in line with what we're talking about because, I've been trying to find some information on this case. There was a case I heard about a couple of years ago where a guy, and it might have been the Skinwalker Ranch one, where he literally was walking 100 yards from his house and he disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And they searched for him for almost 3 weeks all over the countryside, and they were meeting at his house. And they found his body after like 13 or 14 days by the woodpile that was by his house, where his clothes were perfectly clean but ragged, like he had been living in the same clothes and been out in the wilderness, but somebody had cleaned them and put him back on it. He was dead. You know, there was other kind of weird things associated with it, but the fact was these folks were walking right by that woodpile every day, so it would have been impossible for them to miss him over and over and over again. But somehow he just reappeared, and you know, I think that goes right in line with what we're talking about. And that kind of stuff fascinates me too.
Well, up here, you know, we kind of have the same thing though. But it's with missing Indian women, Aboriginal women. I don't know how PC your audience is. I hope they're not that PC.
We're not PC at all.
Okay, thank God.
About the PC stuff.
Oh, thank you.
I just put it this way, I don't care about the PC stuff, and it's my show. So if you care about the PC stuff, then oh well, I'm sorry. I don't have time to be PC. I'm 46 years old. I don't have enough time left to be PC.
Oh, you're awesome. But there's a high number of Indian women that become abducted and they vanish.
I've never heard of this.
Oh, it happens all the time in Canada, and there's even a I don't know what you call it, like an activist group. And they were trying to get the Canadian government more involved, and the Canadian government turned around and was like, not our problem. And
really?
And yeah, and you know, I have a theory on that though, right? Because you know, testing on humans is prohibited. So with all these supersonic weapons that the government's creating, you know, all these like satanic cults around us, you know, who's not to say they're not being used to you know, further, you know, replenish the lust of those who do such things, right? Because
right.
I don't know if you remember the story out of Florida. I forget his name, but he looked deranged or whatnot. Anyways, he said that he was responsible for 300 murders, and he was acquainted with a satanic cult.
Really?
And
I know I've never heard of this one.
Lee, whatever. I forget his name, but he was the only criminal on death row to get pardoned by George W. Bush.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I forget his name, and my whole theory was that these Aboriginal women were being taken by the government and used as human testing as human guinea pigs, or being used as satanic for satanic rituals, because there is a huge underground community of Satanists. Kind of like how Staten Island is has the hugest satanic population in North America. There are groups around where I live that do practice in the occult, and I've been reported on this for a while now, and I've been getting threats, via email, because I always put my email address out there, right?
Right.
And I've been getting strange knocks on my doors, all hours of the night and whatnot. And I see a connection with this, and it's exactly what I think it is, if that makes any sense. My medications, I'm on antibiotics, so.
Is it making you loopy?
No. If I'm going off topic a little bit, that's why.
Oh, no, it's fine. We go off topic all the time here. So that's not a problem.
You're gonna edit that part out, right?
Yes, yeah, we have a good editing process here. Sure.
Okay, perfect.
So you mentioned, some things that you've gotten through emails and stuff like that. Have you really had a lot of pushback from any of your writings or investigations you've done?
Yes, actually, when I was investigating the satanic cult, which I had to stop for fear of my family's safety.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a couple articles in there where I talk about, animal mutilations and whatnot, and I had a contact. I had a contact, and I lost communication with him. I had his phone number and everything like that. I tried calling him up, disconnected. I don't know what happened to him. Maybe he just disappeared, for his own safety.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was
So what?
involved human animal sacrifices. Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. So why do you think why do you think that that's happening? I mean, is it just that people feel threatened by what you know? Do they not want the word getting out? Are they, is it bigger than that? Why do you think those threats come in?
I honestly think a lot of people don't want to have their dirty laundry aired out. Because once you bring up Satanism and animal sacrifices and grave robbing, then people start to take a long, hard look at the subject matter, right?
Right. And I would like to kind of delineate just because my wife doesn't really listen to the podcast, so she's not a podcast listener. So, but for her benefit, she and I have this conversation all the time, and she points out, well, the Church of Satan is not a bad thing, which to me as a Christian it kind of is, but whatever. But that's not the same as Satanism. What you're talking about is you're talking about the practice of human sacrifice, of occult rituals, things like that aren't generally accepted in our culture these days.
Well, like the Church of Satan, I don't discriminate against anybody's religious beliefs.
No, of course not.
But
right.
But when it involves killing animals and digging up graves to collect human skulls, then for me, I don't know if the Church of Satan, the Church of Satan does that.
Right, and I honestly don't know either.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go contact them and ask them, because in all honesty, I see it as like Christianity. There's different sects of it, right?
Yes,
so,
exactly.
So this might just be something that a small group of people are doing. I don't want to accuse anybody of doing this, but what I'm trying to say is that there is evidence of a small group. I don't know how many, but they're doing this. And I've tried to tell people this, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're insane. This is crazy. Nobody would do that. But
don't say nobody will, because people have and will do it again.
Well, yeah, and there is a rising number of occult activity like this all over North America, but the media and the authorities don't want to pay any attention to it, because who knows how far these tentacles go. They could be our neighbors, they could be in the police departments and stuff like that. It's you don't know for sure, right?
Right, and it was one of those things where it seemed like it was in the media's eye for a period of 5 or 6 years. I want to say in the late 80s and maybe early 90s. I remember them talking a lot about it, but then it just disappeared. And for sure, folks didn't stop doing it. Exactly.
Like, you're not going to just stop right off the bat. You're going to stop talking about it once you start feeling pressure. And that's, and I'm not afraid to admit it. That's what happened to me, right? Because, I've got a family, and I don't want people, banging on my door at 1:30 in the morning anymore. It's one of those things where it's like, well, what are you going to do, right?
Right. Well, the great thing is that the great thing is that you are at least courageous enough that you still have the information that you researched on Mystery Press, that you didn't take it down. That I definitely can sympathize with your position where you want to protect your family, because I've got a family myself, where you're like, I've got to think about people other than just me. But at the same time, you're like, you know what? The internet's forever, man. It's out there now.
Exactly.
So, wow.
Good luck dealing with it now, right?
And the great thing is because of the things that you write about. Again, as I said, the internet's forever, so it's there. But then also, if somebody looks at it and somebody stumbles across it, and then maybe that opens their eyes a little bit to where they see things that are going on around them, and oh yeah, I remember reading about that, or if you educate one person, maybe that's mission accomplished.
Yeah, that's how I've always looked at it, right? As long as one person reads what I've written and thinks about it, then I've already won the battle.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what would you say? What do you want to be the goal with Mystery Press? What do you see as your end game with it? Where do you want to go from here with your website?
I want to just keep on going to the day I die, unless I hand over the keys to somebody else. I want to keep on going. It'll always be a part of me.
Mm-hmm.
I will always be working on it till the very end. I can't really see myself doing anything else with it, right?
Right.
Like I said before, it's out there to educate and inform. And I guess, if the world blows up or we have a situation like in the movie The Mist, then maybe it might stop.
Well, I mean, a lot of things are going to stop at that point. So.
Yeah. Because then, people will be like, hey, the Mystery Press was right,
But see, that's where I'm kind of getting to. Are you looking for, how do you put this without sounding like a jerk? Are you looking for validation? Are you looking for somebody to come across and say, hey, you're right about that? Or are you just putting the information out there for educational purposes, and whoever believes it, whoever doesn't, you don't care?
I'm just putting it out there for educational purposes. Like I said prior, like I don't care if I'm ever vindicated. I don't care if somebody's like, hey, you're right. You can believe it or you don't have to believe it.
Right.
It reminds me of the show, Kojak the Night Stalker from the 70s. Everybody thought he was crazy, but he kept putting it out there. But some people believed him. I'm not saying I'm like, Kojak the Night Stalker, but as long as people are reading it with an open mind, and as long as people are asking questions, that's all I want. I'm not looking for a statue in a museum named after me. Like,
maybe a plaque would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, a plaque would be a bench with a plaque on it would be nice.
Yeah,
Nothing. That'd be nice.
Nothing pretentious or anything like that.
No. Something to rest your dog. Those dogs are barking.
Oh man. Well, hey, MP, it's been awesome talking with you, man. And I know you're in the middle of writing a book right now. I've read the introduction to it and the first chapter. It's a great read from what I've seen so far. And it's on a different subject than most people would probably be accustomed to reading about. Why don't you go ahead and plug your book, MP?
Okay, the book is entitled Web of Deceit. It is a book that I've been researching for a very long time, that I have experienced, and like you said, it is completely off the rails from what I actually report and talk about. And I'm glad you've read the introduction in the first chapter. I think 30 people have read it so far. So that's 30 people. That's 30 people whose eyes have been opened, and mission accomplished.
Awesome. Well, have you gotten any feedback from it so far?
Actually, no. Nobody has commented on any of it. But I will say this though: it is number 14 right now in conspiracy theory. On the top of the conspiracy theories, yeah, which is amazing. Like, I honestly, I almost spit out my coffee this morning reading that.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations, man. That's incredible. That's incredible. And like I said, the little bit that I've read of it, I really enjoyed. It took me a little while to get into it, which I don't read a whole lot of. I read a whole lot, but a lot of what I read is technical manuals, recipe books, things like that. I'm really into food and things. So I don't read a whole lot of stories, other than the stories that people send me for the podcast. And it took me a minute or so to get into it, but once I got into it, I was like, man, this is really compelling stuff. So I encourage everybody out there to check it out. And we'll put if I can get a link from you, we'll put a link on the podcast notes, so anybody that comes across it can have a gander at it for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll be more than happy to give you a link to it.
Okay. Awesome. Well, MP, I would like to thank you for being on the show this week, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. Yes, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully this won't be the last time we chat. So, looking forward to any kind of future communications with you, man.
Oh, believe me, you'll have plenty of future communications with me.
Awesome.
And I would like to say this.
Yes, sir.
The number one podcast in the field of paranormal activity.
Oh, thank you. That's, I'm not real polished. I'm just one guy doing what I can, but what I like to feel like, I get my point across to folks, and I try to be open to folks and help other folks out too. So I appreciate you saying that. Really do.
Hey, you're very welcome, man. You've earned it.
Thanks, MP. Awesome. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this week's episode of True Paranormal, the podcast. I would like to thank my guest, MP, for sitting down with us and having a nice conversation this afternoon. Really enjoyed that. If you guys get a chance, be sure to check out his website at themysterypress.wordpress.com. That's themysterypress.wordpress.com. And we're going to put some links to that in our show notes. So you guys be sure to stop by and check it out and say hi to him. And also give him a follow on Twitter and let him know that you guys are out there. There's a lot of interesting things on his website. Be sure to check us out on Facebook at True Paranormal the podcast. And give us a like and check out some of our articles and links that we have there, as well as any of our old episodes. And if you've got any stories or any experiences that you'd like to share with us, that's a great place to do it. Just send us a message or send us an email at trueparanormalpodcast@gmail.com. That's trueparanormalpodcast@gmail.com. Additionally, if you're listening to us on iTunes, be sure to give us a rating and a review there. Every little bit helps us out, and it feels great to know that you guys are out there listening to us. We're also on Twitter, and we're on YouTube, and all kinds of other places. So wherever you guys happen to see us, give us a shout out. Let us know that you folks are out there, and we can definitely connect with you. We love chatting with you guys. I'd like to thank all you guys for joining us this week, and every week for that matter, and be sure to join us next week for another episode of True Paranormal, the podcast.